This year's draft was pretty stacked with young talent, and many of those players have already started to make a name for themselves. Guys like Luka Doncic, Trae Young, DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, and Jaren Jackson Jr. were all taken near the top of the draft, and all of them have been living up to the hype for the most part. Those guys were all taken near the top of the draft though, and were expected to be doing what they're doing to a certain degree. Further down the draft board, the number of serious contributors becomes more few and far between. One player from the end of the first round, though, that has been making a big name for himself after being questioned heavily when he was picked, and that player is Landry Shamet, who will be the topic of today's video. Today, we'll be taking a look at Shamet's path to where he is today, and how he has been doing the things that very few others have done so early in their careers. Before we start though, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Unlike some players that I've highlighted in the past, Shamet was not some sort of highly touted, next big thing prospect when he was young. He grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, which isn't exactly a notorious basketball hub that grooms future stars, and he played high school basketball at Park Hill High School, which again isn't like many of these academies that play on the national circuit and always have top recruits. Instead, he came from a modest upbringing where he was promised nothing and had to work a lot harder to gain any kind of recognition. For Shamet, this was no problem. Shamet had good height for a guard at 6'5", but was fairly skinny, was never one of the fastest guys on the floor, and his athleticism was decent at best. So without being blessed with the physical tools to dominate, Shamet had to learn how to play the game by outthinking his opponent, with decision making and doing the little things, and that he did. In the words of Darren Mason, who coached Landry's AAU team throughout his high school career, "We were a motion team, and we played without the dribble all the time. Landry was one of those kids that got it right away. He just knew how to get open without the ball. He understood how to use screens, when to curl, when to fade, when to basket cut, and when to slip it. He was a really sharp kid, a coach's dream." When he finished high school, he was labeled a 3-star recruit by ESPN and fielded some solid offers from some major conference programs, but he ultimately committed to play for Coach Greg Marshall at Wichita State in 2015, which at the time was still a mid-major program. But after they had made a bit of noise in March Madness for the couple years prior, they seemed to be trending in the right direction, and Shamet wanted to be a part of that. By teaming up with Fred VanVleet in the backcourt, they were supposed to form one of the better backcourts in the entire country from the jump, but unfortunately, after only 3 games in his freshman season, Shamet suffered a foot injury and was forced to be redshirted for the rest of the year, meaning he was shut down and did not play in a game for the rest of the season. However, that doesn't mean that the year went to waste. Sometimes being able to sit back and just watch others play the game at a high level can be a good teaching point, and Shamet learned a lot about how to run an offense, control the pace, and pick and choose his spots from Fred VanVleet that year. Plus, when he eventually recovered from his injury, he was able to battle with VanVleet and guard him in practice, which was super valuable to his development even if he couldn't actually contribute in games. After that season, VanVleet went off to the NBA, so the ball was put in Shamet's hands, and he was forced into a role that he wasn't quite used to. But because he's so easy to coach and is willing to do whatever the team needs him to do, he adjusted and took it on fine. That role was being the point guard, meaning that instead of being able to do what he does best in moving around off the ball and looking to get open for a shot himself, he now had to embrace the role of the creator and initiate the offense. He was the leader of the offense for the next 2 years in this role, and from year 1 to year 2, he really seemed to get comfortable in that role, improving across the board in virtually every category, and the Shockers continued making runs in the tournament. After his redshirt sophomore season, he declared for the draft, which did surprise some people because he was projected by many draft experts to only be a second-round pick. This didn't deter him at all though, because he knew what kind of confidence he had in himself, and he wanted to impress some teams enough to make his way into the first round. So as he said, "I know myself and I believe in myself, and I think that's why I was so confident to be able to leave. When I was coming out of high school, I probably wasn't even a top 8 player in the state of Missouri, so I've overcome a lot, and I've always been overlooked, and I think I'll always carry that chip on my shoulder." He went through pre-draft routines, worked out for a few teams, and still, according to most major media outlets that I've looked through and that wrote a pre-draft scouting report for him, almost all of them only labeled him as a second-round talent. The good thing for Shamet, though, is that all he needs is one team to fall in love with him and what he brings to the table, and give him a chance in the first round, and that's exactly what happened with the Philadelphia 76ers. When he got picked by them 26th overall in this most recent draft, a lot of people, even in the Philly media, were questioning the pick. A lot of the focus was on his weaknesses, and a lot of his strengths got heavily overlooked. They worried about his subpar athleticism, lack of creation off the dribble, and potential defensive struggles. What they should have been incredibly excited about, though, was that he was a known knockdown shooter. These worries probably stemmed from the fact that because Shamet played point guard in college, they assumed he was going to have to be a point guard in the NBA. But as we discussed earlier, he was actually recruited as a shooting guard coming out of high school, and because he was playing out of position in college, his ability to show off how good he is at moving around off the ball and playing his natural position was not apparent to the scouts. Now, with the Sixers playing alongside Ben Simmons, he was essentially forced off the ball, which was the best thing that could have possibly happened to his career. Plus, to add to just how perfect of a situation he was coming into immediately, he had JJ Redick, one of the best shooters the league has ever seen, who has mastered the art of off-ball movement and using screens, to mentor him. Having someone like that to practice with, pick the brain of, and mimic on a daily basis is vastly underrated in the discussion of development of young talent. According to Sixers coach Brett Brown, it was absolutely by design to have Redick take Shamet under his wing. As he said, "I think being with JJ might be the greatest gift any coach or any program could give him. He looks across from him, and it's JJ Redick to try to replicate and duplicate and copycat one of the league's premier movers, and by the way, he can shoot. The combination of him moving and shooting, and if you turn your head, you're going to get punished. Landry does that." Now, all of this is great, but he still wasn't guaranteed any minutes in the rotation as a rookie. But when the Markelle Fultz saga went downhill for a second year in a row, a spot opened up, and Shamet stepped into it seamlessly. Just how seamlessly, you might be wondering? Well, this is the part that ties back to the title of the video, because his production shooting the ball from 3 has been so good that he's been one of only 7 rookies all time to take 4 threes per game and shoot above 40%. Plus, out of those 7 players, Shamet had the second best three-point percentage out of all of them at 42.2%, behind none other than, you guessed it, Steph Curry, who shot 43.7% from 3 as a rookie. Now, we all realize Curry is the best shooter of all time, so coming in second place to a guy like that surely isn't anything to be upset about, and if anything, it shows just how bright of a future Shamet has moving forward. Shamet, though, is no longer on the Sixers, as he got traded at the trade deadline to the Los Angeles Clippers in the Tobias Harris trade. As a result, he stepped right into their starting lineup, got a bigger opportunity, and is shooting the ball even better, increasing his percentage to 45% from 3 in the 23 games that he played with the Clippers in the regular season. A lot of you probably got an introduction to him after the Clippers came back from a 31-point deficit against the Warriors in the playoffs the other day, which was capped off by a Landry Shamet go-ahead 3. So hopefully this video helped you get to know a little bit more about the rookie and his journey to that moment. While he's definitely not on the same level as Steph Curry, he is on the way to becoming a phenomenal shooter for years to come. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more NBA content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.